Hello? Hey, this is Donald from TSC. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about our company and what? Hello? Dang it. Happened again. Listen, if you've had conversations like that or try to have conversations where you're trying to get a hold of a prospect, but for some reason you're not connecting, you're not grabbing attention, you're not having any conversations at all, you're going to love this episode. We're going to tell you exactly what you need to do. Man, I'm going to figure this stuff out too. I need to... Hey, what's that? Can you give me that number again? I got to call these people back. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have Matt Reuter on the podcast. Matt and I connected on LinkedIn. And today he's going to talk to you about what he and his team's doing to actually, one, get people to answer their phone and not like me and the teaser there. Two, how he's getting these people to show up for the appointment and turning into real opportunities. Listen, this stuff is good. You got to check it out. Listen to the full episode. Get your teams, get your cousin, get your mom, get them around a campfire and have them listen to this episode. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe. And we'll make sure to notify you every time we got a new episode dropping. Now, today, it's not going to be any different. We're going to give you content that's going to focus on, one, helping you build pipe, or two, helping you close deal. And today, man, it's good. Some good tactical things, some good tactical juices. Check it out. Make sure to apply this information because as Matt lays it out, it's just going to be some good stuff. As we dive in, you get a chance to learn a little bit more about him, but also about the challenge, about how difficult it is now more so than ever and why to get in contact with your ideal prospects. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this, man. You're one of those folks that, we connected on LinkedIn. You came highly recommended. So I'm really looking to learn from you. And as a seller, you've been in this game for a minute and you understand what works and what doesn't work. But one of the big problems we find with sellers is, especially right now, when we're recording this episode in 2023, is that people are just not connecting well. Like, how can we get connected with prospects, like to, break through the clutter, break through the noise. So I want to pick your brain on that for a little bit, have some discussion, some chat, but talk to us a little bit more about what you do right now.
Yeah, so I'm a senior director of sales development for RealPage. We're a global real estate software company, and we sell into owners and operators of multifamily apartment buildings. And so we do all the back-end technology for that. I've got 3 different SDR leaders underneath me. We have an organization of around 40. There's a couple reps that handle our inbound leads, and then there's the majority of us are outbound prospecting.
Yeah. Dope. Love it. What are some of the challenges you're seeing right now? I mean, you send an email and people just answer right now, right?
Yeah.
Somebody just sends out an email.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I thought we would talk through is just like connecting with people. Like, I think we've seen, I know all of my teams have seen this very recently, with different economic headwinds and things that are happening within the marketplace and different things. Like, people are just, they're slower to get back. Some of them aren't picking up phones anymore. They're not replying to emails. There's so much noise in the space that I think that they're starting to it's just cloudy. And so one of the things that I thought we'd kind of discuss or talk through is just like increasing that connection rate. I mean, I think that there's some very tangible things that you can do to help increase that rate. But then also remembering that in the sales, in the world of sales, we're chasing 1% success, right? Like, so, it's like, you've got to take everything with a grain of salt. And, what I tell my team all the time is it's like, these are just little things that you can do to increase the odds of getting one more. Because if you get one more and now you're at a 2% success rate, you're a top earner and you're getting close to President's Club. So,
Well, I always give an example. I ran track in high school, middle school, and tried at collegiate level, not like intramural stuff with that. But one of the things that I would share is like, bro, by the time I got to like the college level, it's not like I could take like seconds off my time. I could take milliseconds off. You're probably doing a lot of this stuff over the years, and I think it's the same thing, especially with sales, right? If this episode just helped one seller to fine tune, like you said, help them get a percentage or a quarter of a percent better,
Yeah.
that could be like millions of dollars for them and their company
Yeah.
in the long run. So I love that approach, looking at it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it, man. Connect. So what are some of the things that people are doing wrong? What are some things? We don't even go into just things. Yeah, let's talk about what are some things people are doing wrong, and then what are you all doing right now to get your connection to have such a higher increase in connections?
Yeah. Well, I think that you just have to take a step back as a seller, and you have to realize who is your prospect and what are they doing and what time zone do they live in and what city do they live in. I had an opportunity at the last organization I was a part of. We had SDR teams in New York and in California, and then we had one in Atlanta and Dallas. I ran the Dallas office, and I got to go and just and spend a week in each of those offices, learning from the leaders and the teams and just understanding. But one of my big takeaways was that was the first time I had an entire work week in a different city, and
Mm-hmm.
I realized that work life and the way people conduct business and the way their day is structured is very different depending on which area of the country that you're in. And so, one of the things I tell people all the time is like, you've got to think about your prospect. What are they doing? When are those heavy meeting times? Like if you just pull up, I'll have, a rep pull up our SVP or our chief sales officer's calendar. And I'll say, what you're trying to do is find that one little segment of time that's open. And that's when you're trying to deliver that phone call. And that sliver of time is never between the hours of, 9:30 and noon, right? Or like 1 and 3. But then you look at reps, and that's when all their activity is, And so it's just thinking about your prospect and not thinking about, okay, I have to get this activity done, but I have to be smart about my activity and make sure that I strategically place it. Maybe in that time block right before lunch, maybe at like 11 o'clock, you schedule all your emails to go out, or you write your emails then, so that when they go to lunch and every one of us pops out our phone at lunch, we're sitting at the table, we're at the top of the inbox, or even if you're, after lunch, that 1 to 2 o'clock time range, maybe doing some LinkedIn work, right? Because I think a lot of us will come back from lunch, pull out the computer, check the emails, get on LinkedIn and scroll. So it's like, that's when you drop that activity, and so it's just
Yeah.
working smarter and not harder. If that makes sense.
And I think that's it's a powerful concept. But it's hard to follow when leaders don't set you up that way, because it's kind of like, bro, we need the numbers. Like, go and do your activity. And it's how do you manage that, or how did you manage your team? Because clearly you guys, it's working for you guys. How do you manage that expectation from the higher ups, and how did you educate your sellers on that?
Yeah. Well, we, you got to think about it as, it's not how many calls you make or how many emails you send. It's how many of those were successful, right? And so
Can you
if
repeat that one more time for the people in the back? I
yeah,
just got
so
some folks in the back of the audience. I just need them to hear that.
it's not about the number of calls. It's not about the number of emails. It's about the outcomes, right? It's about what you're
Yeah.
pushing for. If that's a connection, if that's a meeting set, like focusing on the metrics. So, I love Tim Grover's book, Relentless. And one of the quotes that he has in that book is, he says, I want you to crave the results so bad that the work becomes irrelevant. And
Come
so
on.
like, you've got to focus on the right activities. And so one of the things that we try to do as leaders is we give that autonomy to our reps to structure their day and to build it out. We're not saying, hey, this is when you got to do this and this is when you got to do this, but we kind of challenge them to think about their buyer and think about what they're doing, so that, in our words, you're not making 50 calls in a day and they're all pointless. If no one picks up, then that was technically a waste of time, right? And so
Yeah.
you want to make sure, if you're going to invest that time and that energy, you do it in a time that your odds statistically are higher for them to pick up.
Because they are getting stuff done. It's just a matter of when you're focusing on those clustering those activities.
Right.
What else do you all do to increase that connection rate? You're connecting people at the right time or smart times, trying to best identify when they might be there. What else are you all doing to help with that?
I think, there's a couple things. So one, we leverage cadences, right? And I think most people in the SDR space do. It's completing every step on time so that prospect moves up and through your funnel. And so one of the things that I see that people don't do a good job of when their connection rate is low is I'll look at their connections or the times that they're making their calls, and I'll look at it and I'll see, hey, the majority of your activity, you're calling people who've been in the cadence for 2 weeks, 3 weeks and haven't picked up. And so there's a lack of fresh people coming in. And so their activity, we know based on data between day 7 and day 15 are likely like the times where a prospect's going to respond. And so you want the majority of your activity for the day to be between those 2 days. And so you have to constantly check your funnel and look at where are my people at in this funnel to make sure I'm maximizing those activities. So that's step one that we do is we monitor that very closely. Where are they at in their steps? And how many people are they adding each day? But then I think
is there a particular tool you're using or a particular sales engagement?
Yeah, we leverage Sales to do that. Yeah,
love it.
And so on top of that, we're also saying you need to increase the volume of left voicemails, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to provoke a response, whether positive or negative. Hopefully positive, but we're trying to get some sort of an answer. And so in order for somebody to respond and feel obligated to, you want to touch them across multiple channels. And so every single touch is an impression. And so the more impressions that you get, the quicker they will respond. And so, I get, and I'm sure you get as well, you get phone calls all the time that they don't leave a voicemail. And so I have no way to connect that phone call to who's reaching out to me. And so it's a wasted impression. And I think most people don't leave a voicemail because they don't know what to say, or, they don't want to, it's repetitive and they don't want to continue to do it because they don't get a meeting. But one of the things we teach over here is that the point of the voicemail is not to get a meeting. And really, it's not even to get a call back. It's to let them know that it's you that's making those 50 dials every single day into them, trying to get a hold of them, which will hopefully provoke them being like, what, I'm going to finally pick up and respond to this guy. So that in itself is a huge part. So you've got the cadence steps and making sure you finish those on time. You've got leaving a voicemail whenever you're making the call. And then, there's different schools of thought, but calling mobile phones has been huge for us.
Come on.
Most people are like, oh, I don't want to call a CEO's cell phone, and I think what we saw during COVID is that became normal. I started this role in COVID and I didn't even know my desk phone because I did all of my work on my cell phone. Right. And it's like, it's just a different world now. And I think people are more open to that,
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. We did a switch probably around that same time in the pandemic. Because before that, I'm a millennial. So I grew up in an era where we first had our cell phone, those little brick Nokia phones and whatnot. And you're like, bro, people are protective of that cell phone. Nobody wants to give that number out. So it was hard for me. I'm being truthful there to transition from that. Like, I don't know if I should call. But as a seller in me, I'm like, bro, we need to call. So big shout out to folks over at Seamless, folks over at Apollo. They all provided like that cell. And the first time we started calling like the mobile phone, like we did not see, I think we have maybe on 2 instances where somebody, 2 or 3, I'm being totally truthful to you, where people said, how'd you get my phone number? Please don't call my cell phone. But between 3 out of like maybe the thousands that we've made, like it's not a big deal for most folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a leader tell me one time, don't change your entire process because of one person, right? Like,
seriously.
Like, don't stop calling mobiles if one person got upset about it. You wouldn't.
People get upset if I call their office phone. So
exactly.
I'm not going to call an office phone. I'm not going to send emails. I'm not going to connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to sit back and wait and just hope that they come to us. So marketing, do
Yeah.
your job.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think, one of the things that we'll say on that, I mean, it's 2023, right? I can Google
Mhm.
anybody, find their phone number nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's, information is widely available. And I think people understand the game now. I don't think,
Yeah.
and especially in the B2B space, like, I don't think, everybody says remove them from the list and that kind of stuff. And like, but I think most people understand that their contact information is out there somewhere.
Yeah. I think they're like, remove me from this campaign. Like,
Yeah.
come try again. Give me another campaign later. Like
Yeah,
something else that matter to me. It
exactly.
doesn't matter right now.
And then
So
one last point, that one of the other
yeah.
things that we do is contact info quality, which is super important, right? And
Yeah.
so sometimes we'll see reps, especially some of the new ones, that are taking the number that's in Salesforce, and that's the phone number that they've just pound over and over because that's what everyone else has been calling, and they don't leave a voicemail, and it has no recorded voicemail, so they don't even know that they're calling the wrong number the whole time. And so I think it's important to try multiple numbers and then make notes for yourself of these are the phone numbers to call, or these are the ones that actually led to an actual voicemail, so that it limits the amount of time that you're wasting trying to connect with people in the future.
See, so go back to this. You said something earlier on. It's not a matter of and I really feel that we have to drill this over and over for sellers, because for many of us, we're programmed the other way, where it's get as many calls done as possible, increase your chance of batting, right, getting hit. And what you're saying is the quality. And this is a perfect example of, yes, we want you to make better calls. We want you to make calls. And yes, we do to increase the velocity. However, we want you to make the right calls using the right numbers to the right people. So, yes, I
Mhm.
might do 10 calls, but if 5 out of those calls, like you said, are going to non existent phone numbers, it doesn't make sense. But me as a seller, just making notes, making a little iteration. So, how do you best help sellers when it comes towards them practicing this idea of writing, of keeping track of the right phone numbers or whatnot? Are you just keeping track of that in a CRM, or are they saving that in like a Google Doc? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we have them create notes in SalesLoft to store that data and store that information, so it's always there. But one of the things that we do as managers is we're monitoring that activity. We're asking them to walk us through their process, and looking for gaps and inefficiencies in their process, to make sure we have a uniform process across the organization, so that we're all doing relatively the same thing. And I think SDRs, being the front line of a lot of information, um, it's a huge resource for the company if you can capture that information and store it somewhere, to where everyone knows what happened on that call, or the information you found out.
Yeah, love it, man. Well, we make the conversation, we contact the individual here, and I'm sure there's some social elements here that you all are taking advantage of as well,
Mhm.
right? Anything you wanted to highlight for a minute on the social side?
Yeah, I think social is one of those things that um, we've all been. I think James Buckley calls it pitch slapped, right? Where you accept the connection and then boom, there's the pitch. Uh, I think there's a lot of that goes on, and I think that, and this is a very, you know, broad statement, but I think a lot of buyers are being tarnished by that, and I think a lot of them
Yeah.
can see it coming. And so one of the things we try to tell our team to do is give, and make as many deposits as you can, so eventually you can cash out on that, and try to use social as an opportunity to add value and provide resources to people and share webcasts and different things. But at the end of the day, when we think about those impressions that I was talking about, those impression points, an easy touch point is just viewing someone's LinkedIn profile, because it's a
Yeah.
lot of times it's a notification to the phone. If you're going after somebody that maybe not in the sales space, but in a different role, they may not have a ton of activity on their LinkedIn page. And so it can be a good way to stand out and again, put your face in front of them, even without asking or requesting anything from them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That profile view is a very, very simple, low touch that, I mean, it's not a difficult activity, but it definitely does provide results. I look at mine too when somebody view my profile, because for me as a sales guy, I look at the opposite side, right? Who are these people looking at my profile? Is there somebody that I can have convo with?
Right.
But for if somebody's not getting a lot of views, like you're saying, it's kind of like, ooh, somebody's looking at me.
Right.
Let me see who this is.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So there's one thing about getting connect, but you know, in sales, it's all about ultimately it's like, you know, what have you done for me today? What do you got for me today?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What kind of results? What are some of the things you're doing to get people to actually show up? Because you guys have some pretty good show rates, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We're tracking at about 75% of our meetings that we set up actually hold with next steps, which is pretty outstanding. Right. But one of the things is that we teach is that people don't show up for three reasons, really. Something genuinely came up. They actually forgot about the meeting, or there wasn't enough value for them to come. And, you know, what we say all the time is you can only affect two of those things, right? You can't affect whether or not that something came up and they had to prioritize a different call over that one. But you can affect the other two, right? And so if we start with just forgetting, right? Like we try to get our reps to ask after they've closed the appointment, hey, do you mind if I shoot you a text the day of the meeting just to remind you? That could also be an easy way for us to communicate back and forth. And most of the time people say yes. And we find that, you know, when you get that text, that ability to text that prospect, you get on a different level than most people, right? And then you're a little bit deeper in there, and then it's an easy way to communicate, reschedule, that kind of stuff. And then I always say, send a reminder 2 days before the appointment, and then the day of the appointment, just to make sure that you're in there. I always love to reply back to accepted calendar invites. You know, and a lot of the times the email that I'll send back will be like, you know, hey, I didn't see, maybe if they didn't accept the invite, it might be something like, hey, I didn't see that you accepted the invite. Just want to make sure that you got it. And a lot of times that will provoke, you know, that accepted invite or pushing through on the meeting. And then when you think about adding value, right? Like this is a big thing that we teach around here, is that we don't sell products, right? We sell solutions to problems. And if we can find a problem and get the prospect to understand the business impact of not fixing that problem, then we're golden. And so we try to not sell a product and set up a meeting for a product, but set up a solution to the problem. And what we find is, like, when you've actually identified a true problem that you can solve, nobody misses, like, people rarely miss those for, you know, because they don't want to take the call. So I think that's step one. And then we then take that information and that problem that we found, include it in the calendar invite, so that when the prospect comes and is like, what is this meeting about again? Oh yeah, this is the one that's going to solve this problem. And then just setting proper expectations on the call after you set the appointment. So being like, you know, after they're like, Thursday at 3:00 works. Like, okay, great. Well, here's what's going to happen next, right? And this is where you can qualify, just so I can make the best use of your time. Can I ask you these couple questions real quick? And then again, just resetting expectations. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this information, deliver it to my account executive. I'll send out a calendar invite right after this. It'll have a Zoom link. Click the Zoom link. You'll be on the meeting with both of us. We'll be ready to answer any of the questions that you have. I'm going to send that over now. Please let me know if you don't see it, or let me know when you do see it by accepting the invite, so I know that it came through. And just like over elaborate on that process. And I think what that does is it reminds people, and it makes them like a little bit more invested in the call. Like one of my managers, John Riemann, who was actually, we were talking through it today. He was telling me one of the ways he teaches this to his teams is, if you think about a restaurant, you put a reservation at each restaurant. One restaurant you call and you're like, hey, I want a reservation for 6:00. They're like, cool, you're on there. But then you call another restaurant and they're like, are you celebrating anything special? Can we have any wine prepared for you, or anything that you're going to want to have? Like, which one of those are you going to feel worse, you know, about canceling? And it's like, you're going to feel worse about canceling the one where they're preparing something for you. And so we try to make that on the call of like, hey, we're going to pull this data for you. We'll be able to talk about X, Y, and Z. So it makes them feel a little more obligated to show up.
Completely. I was just thinking about that too. We just celebrated an anniversary, my wife and I, 10 years. And one of the things I called a spot, and that was like what they did. I was like, bro, we got to make sure we're on time. We got to make sure we're there.
Yeah.
These folks are ready for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Well, this is so good, man. I love this. I love the text idea too. It's one that I've employed a lot. Where I before again, millennial here speaking. When I was afraid of people not wanting to give me their number, I flipped it and went the other way, and I would say something like, "In case something comes up, here's my cell phone to take it down."
Mhm.
And then I would say, well, "What's the best number to reach you at?"
Yeah.
So it's like I gave to you. So then now, can you give back to me?
Yeah.
But again, like you said, people are willing to give that stuff nowadays, and I love this preparation idea. I am preparing stuff and getting things ready for you. This is just amazing. Um, Anything else you guys are doing to have such 75% freaking? That's amazing. 75% show rate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're double clicking into it when we have reps that aren't seeing those rates, and I think that's what's really important is to figure out what are they doing. We'll jump into the calls, we'll listen to the calls, and we also just kind of set the culture that if the meeting's not going to happen, why are you setting it? If the odds are there's no value here, right? Like, and I've said before, it's a scary thing to do, but it's a veteran move when you feel like, and everybody gets on those calls where they feel like I'm getting the meeting just to get the meeting. It's a veteran move to stop and say, hey, let me ask you this. Like, let's just level set here. Is this going to be a total waste of time for you? Because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. And if you can get them to say, yes, this is, and you eliminated them taking a meeting to get you off the phone, then you just relieved a whole headache, a scheduling conflict, following up with this person and them not responding. And it's just like, you can move on, So we try to, a lot of reps, especially in the early stages, just want to set a meeting to set a meeting. And so you see that high no-show rate and then eventually start to even out as they get that figured out. But
oh, bro, my goodness, man, so good. Listen, I think we could talk for like another hour on these topics. This is amazing, man. But if there's a leader out there listening to this episode and they're thinking, bro, what you're hitting on today, Matt, makes sense. I want to help my team to better with their contact rate. We're dismal right now. Ground zero. Where do we start? What's the first thing that you would tell them that they should start doing?
I think it's to start inspecting, right? And Matt Buchalski, my boss, talks to us all the time about you have to. They will expect what they expect you to inspect, and so it's just getting in there and inspecting everything, looking at what's actually happening, because it may be something as simple as you need a contact info database that's going to deliver you good phone numbers and good email addresses. It could just be that. It could be like a data problem. It could be something where you have reps that are setting appointments to just set appointments and there's no value there, which is another fix. Or it could be that, you're going after the wrong personas for the wrong products, and so I think you just need to get underneath it, take a look at the data, see what it's suggesting, and then start there.
Love it, man. If people want to get in touch with you, Matt, to learn a little bit more about you and what you're doing, what's the best way for them to go about doing so?
LinkedIn. That's pretty much the only place to find me, and that's the place I hang out.
We'll put your LinkedIn profile in our show notes. Matt, thank you for taking the time to come on our show today. Thanks for parting some wisdom with us today, and appreciate you.
Of course, happy to. Thank you for having me.
Hey, that was Matt Reuter. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and connect with him on LinkedIn. I have all of his details down below. You can check it out and tell him that you heard him here on the one and only, the Sales Evangelist Podcast, and that we appreciate him. Listen, I'm doing the show because we want to help you. I started off this show back in 2012, 2013, because I was a sales rep who wanted to figure things out, started figuring things out and was succeeding. And I wanted to share what was working. Today, I'm still sharing what's working with our guests. A lot of great content. Again, we want to help you to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline or close twice as many deals. And all of our content is going to tie around that. If you want to get some particular help with that, we have training programs. And one of them I know a lot of people are gangbuster jumping on right now and checking out is our LinkedIn prospecting course. We have a new cohort starting up in January, and you should definitely check it out. We're going to teach you how to generate at least 3 to 5 appointments per week using LinkedIn, normal, natural ways without spamming. I promise you, Scout's honor. We do this all the time, and I know you're going to love it as well. Please check it out. You can find information down below. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. Connect with my good friend, Matt. I want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to go out, take advantage of our sponsors, and do big things. See you in the next one.